Welcome back to the Soapbox Business Show. We just finished having a conversation about one of my favorite topics, food. Zach, I've always told you I'm a big fan of Anthony Bourdain and the work that he did on Travel Channel with No Reservations, specifically No Reservations I really enjoyed. And to me, it's always just been like an interesting topic. And today's guest was somebody who's a staple in the Miami food scene. His name is George Arango, but as most people know him on Instagram or on TikTok, I think he has too.
Yeah, TikTok.
Mr. Eats 305, and he is a food reviewer who helps locals and people visiting Miami for the first time to find cool spots and just pretty much his best recommendations on where to eat and where to have a good time down here.
Yeah, I mean, I've lived down here for, my entire life. And I'll be honest, I don't think I've heard of a single place that he mentioned today. So my list of restaurants I got to try out has definitely grown. But I've also learned of some new foods like, what was that thing? Croquettes or something? Croquetas?
Yeah, I let you down. As a Cuban, I've let you down in not introducing you to croquetas. But we will
that world.
Remedy that. Well, it was interesting to talk to George because he's actually built a very successful brand through Mr. Eats 305. And he has over 100,000 followers and people who just really have gravitated towards his content and what he's doing. And what we talked about with George was really his journey of starting that brand. I didn't know this, but he used to be a DJ and also went to law school. I had no idea about his pursuits before this, and really got to know him for the first time on this episode. So what brought him on actually was our agreement of what the best slice of pizza is in Miami, which you'll have to listen to the episode to find out. But overall, it was really fun talking to him about just the brand and how he built it. What did you think about like the strategy involved of?
Yeah, I mean, it was very interesting. One of the things that he likes to talk about a lot, which makes total sense. If you're trying to produce content and just create content about something that you like, right? You've got to always be answering the why. If you're not answering the why for everybody, you're just going to keep repeating the same information that everybody else is saying, and you're not going to be unique. So I think that was a major takeaway from today.
It's exciting stuff, and it's really exciting to finally see, the culinary arts really just being respected as an art, and that chefs are artists in the kitchen, and how that whole experience of eating in a restaurant and going out with friends or family, all of that is just part of the culture of a city and just really is a unifying thing when we all come together at the table. And so we're happy to have this conversation with George. We hope you as the audience enjoy this conversation, and let's get this episode rolling. Welcome back to the Soapbox Business Show. This is episode 2. I'm your host, Mario Busto, alongside my co-host,
Zachary Newton. Welcome.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have a very cool guest, someone who I consider to be the king of the Miami food scene, George Arango, or as his audience knows him by, Mr. Eats 305.
How's it going? Thank you guys for having me on.
Thanks for joining us, George.
Happy to have you.
All right, I want to give a little background about you, and I'm going to throw it to you. I want to just give a little bit of the bio and research that I was doing on you. From what I found, Mr. Eats was created in 2016, and the whole purpose is to help locals and tourists alike discover delicious food spots and go-to destinations. George, aka Mr. Eats 305, covers all things food and the 305. Being a self-described Miami lifer, his passion for food began with his grandmother's Cuban cooking and grew through exploring all the different flavors the Miami cultural melting pot has to offer. The mission of Mr. Eats 305 is to help his audience of food enthusiasts on their search for a good meal or cool spot. He also loves showcasing great food from all over the world, but for Mr. Eats, the 305 is his home. Welcome to the show, George.
That's
and
awesome.
We talked right before this recording. I was like, hey, how do you want me to refer to you, Mr. Eats? Because I've only known you as Mr. Eats. This is the first time I'm interacting with you as George here.
Yeah, most people know me as Mr. Eats 305, but it's more than just the persona of Mr. Eats. When people get to know me and learn the man or behind the brand or the Instagram page, you get to know that it's more than just food,
Yeah, I be honest with you, bro. I can't even take credit for having you on this show. As I was talking to my sister about our agreement about Miami Slice being the best slice of pizza in the city currently. And she's like, you should ask him to be on the show. I was like, damn, that's a great idea. I will ask him. All right, so just a little background on what you do, because you do have a pretty large following on Instagram. I don't have many other platforms for like personal social media, but for anybody who doesn't know what you do, can you give a little background on who you are and the work that you do through your page and through your content?
So, like you said in the intro, my name is George Arango, Mystery 305, created in 2016, but really launched and took off probably around 2019. That's when I really, we can talk about that more, but really put my head down and started going towards content creation. And what I do is on my social media platforms is showcase my adventures throughout life, but my life is eating around Miami and the world and trying to showcase that for you guys.
I love it, man. I think for someone, I consider myself a foodie, but it's kind of hard to like figure out, hey, where am I going to go today? Open up Yelp and just try to figure out where to go. And it's always like a nice resource to just kind of go to your page and just kind of find like, all right, someone's been there, someone's kind of done the testing, someone's done the reviews. Is it worth the trip? So that's always cool.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, we're both Cuban American. Were you born in Cuba or are you born in the States?
No, I was born in the States. States. Yeah.
And you grew up like abuela's cooking was the go-to. That was like the inspiration or the love of food started there.
Yeah, I would say it all starts back at home. There was no need to go to different restaurants in Miami when you had, in my opinion, the best restaurant at abuela's house.
Yeah.
So the palate began there and it basically stayed there until you don't leave the house, leave to college and leave. I went to FIU, but
No, same.
but you just have that independence to explore and you have a car now, so you're open to all that Miami has to offer.
And when I went to FIU, one part of our thing was like just how far could you go on your lunch break and see what was in Westchester, and like there's a lot of gems in there.
Oh yeah.
What gave you the idea to start? Was there anything specific that sparked some inspiration for you to start the page?
Yeah, so I've always loved food, like I said, with whether it's at home, but when I did get that freedom to explore Miami, I loved knowing the next cool spot or the next delicious spot or places that I hadn't heard of before and sharing that news with others. And it wasn't until 2016 when my fiance, now girlfriend at the time, when we first started dating, we were going out to eat every weekend, just like every couple does when they first start dating.
Mhm.
And I was posting stories on Snapchat back before Instagram had stories, and friends of mine were asking me like, oh, what'd you order? Or where is this? And it kind of sparked the idea where like, oh, I could help people find places like this through my research at the time, which was just like going out to eat on weekends, and just create a platform or create a page where people can just go and not have to ask me and just kind of like figure it out, but with my help.
Was the idea fully formed for you as to what you do today? Because I was going back and looking through like your oldest posts, and I was seeing, kind of it's almost like you're seeing as you go through your old posts, you're seeing how your mindset or your strategies evolving with the content you're making. So it goes from like the pictures you're doing, and I think you're even doing prices next to the meals because they look like almost like, hey, this is the bang for buck you can get with this budget, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's always changing. I wouldn't consider my brand or my style to be set in one way, especially with Instagram or TikTok or whatever social media platform you choose or you're using. Your content has to be kind of geared toward that audience of whoever is that you're reaching.
Mm-hmm.
So as my audience grew, I had to understand what they wanted to see. But the initial idea was that I was going to create this Mr. Eats page to help foods for dudes to take their like significant other and go out to eat and find these gems to impress their partners.
Nice.
Which is great, but then like 70% of my audience for the first 3 years were female.
So you're like, all right, let's pivot.
So I had to pivot. I had to just kind of go general into Miami and not just gear it, the captions or the type of places that, you're not going into like dives or sports bars or, fancy places. You kind of just had to everything from the dives to the 5-star accommodations and gear it towards whomever, maybe, locals or tourists.
do you come from a family of business owners? Because I'm assuming now you run Mr. Eats full time as a business.
Yeah, it is a full-time business.
Nice.
But no, I do not come from a family of business owners, with an asterisk, because I only say that because my dad is a police officer and my mom's a teacher. So it's
Mhm.
like classic careers. But
Yeah.
my grandfather, when he moved here from Cuba,
Hmm.
he was a business owner. You
Mhm.
know, when you come here, as you guys know, with nothing and you just kind of have to figure it out. That's how he was, in the sense of, all right, whether it was a shoe shop or a jewelry store or whatever it may be, he figured it out. So maybe a little bit of him and his entrepreneurship is with me.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's not like I come from a long family of business entrepreneurs.
I actually wanted to ask you about that because I grew up hearing. I've never been to Cuba personally.
Me neither.
I have more of an opinionated stance of not wanting to go there until it's different of what's being supported there.
Same.
Um, but I grew up with the stories of hearing, the government came and seized all of our property, and you got to leave and come to a country, start over, not knowing the language, starting from scratch. How did those stories like shape you into who you are today, and like the approach, maybe not even related to the brand, but just the way you approach living life? I think coming from being first generation here, as I am and you are, it's like an appreciation that we're closer to where things can go all wrong in a country.
Yeah. Well, I'm second generation
Second gen,
because
okay.
yeah, 'cause my they moved here in the '60s and my parents were born here in the
Oh,
in the
okay,
States.
okay.
Yeah, but to your point, um, it's more of like the values that are instilled in my parents, and then being with my grandparents, whether it's
Mhm.
breaking bread over, home cooked meals, or just like learning the culture, whether it's over dominoes or pool, billiards, different things that impact your values and your dedication to your craft, and just understanding that we have a lot of opportunities. So we just have to take advantage of them compared to what they had. So it's more of, like you said, internally, and how you approach your day to day, rather than, which then affects the brand. But it's not like, hey, I want to have my brand, and if I, once I
Yeah.
get a team, that I have to be like this type of,
Hmm.
drill sergeant type of thing, how I am with myself.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel that. That's like I've always felt it's the approach of knowing that what you have is based on the sacrifice of like my grandparents, for example. So it's kind of like always in my mind in that way. So it's kind of adds a different perspective for someone out there who doesn't have that familiarity with the Cuban experience, or like what happened there. I wanted to ask you, in terms of being would you consider yourself a food critic, food influencer? What is like the term that we go here?
Yeah, so there's like a whole bunch of names that people call this craft.
Hmm.
I don't like, so I don't mind the word influencer,
Mhm.
because there's a lot of positive that comes from that, but then there's also a bad reputation where, like, these influencers are these, like, people just asking for things for free, or like, are they really like, what are they influencing? Like,
Yeah.
there's just a bad connotation to the word. So what I like to, and I'm not a food critic either, because I don't talk bad about restaurants.
Yeah.
So what I try to do with my page is just highlight the good, and bring up businesses rather than like tear things down.
Yeah.
Of course, there is times where you need to be more truthful than others, but never in a negative, like, hey, I'm going to give you a 1-star review and, talk all this crap about you on my page. Like, that's not what I'm here for. So I would just consider myself a content creator,
Mhm.
because I'm creating content for these restaurants for myself, and whatever impact that has and influence that has on society, that's the added benefit.
Yeah, I mean, you're doing good work for tourism in general for Miami. You know what I mean? In terms of just being kind of an evangelist of the culture down here.
Miami's helping me out. Miami's
Yeah.
been great within the last like 3 years. So, and prior to it, but
Yeah.
especially in the food and beverage scene,
Hmm.
it's been on an upward trend.
Yeah. I was gonna mention when you said it that you're there to bring out the good. I was looking at your croqueta reviews that you're going through Miami looking for that. And the whole time I'm thinking in my head, I mean, he's going all these places, but when he gets to Isla Canaria, it's like it's done for. So how do you how do you keep your ranking so that you're doing good, but at the same time, like being real, like, all right, this is like the holy grail of croquetas in Miami, and then the rest are like, B plus and
So I mean I obviously did go to Y La Canaria and gave that
yeah,
the A plus,
yeah.
and with that idea, that was during COVID, so we weren't able to like go into restaurants.
Mhm.
So that's why I did that segment. I think I did like 10 episodes of that, of croquetas that people could just like pick up and eat, and obviously Super Miami. With that, I already had like the pinnacle of Y La Canaria. This body's raised on Y La Canaria croquetas.
Yeah.
So like it was just understanding that if that's my favorite, where everything else lays amongst those rankings, you know?
So
Yeah.
so
Go
I'm
ahead.
I'm super white and a little ignorant here. So what is a croqueta? I'm assuming that's
I'll
what
leave-
you're pronouncing.
I failed
I
you as a
know,
friend.
I
I'm
know.
sorry.
Mario, come on, man. You gotta bring him like a whole carry case. Yeah.
I'll leave that to you, George, if you want to
Yeah.
give him the.
So a croqueta this is what makes up a good croqueta. Ham, bechamel, parsley, some seasoning, and that gets breaded and fried, and it's a Cuban protein stick.
That's it.
Nice. That
And you
sounds
can
delicious.
eat it. You can eat it by itself. You can put lime on top of it. People like to put it on top of a cracker and then lime, or on top of a cracker, lime, and hot sauce. Like there's literally put in a sandwich.
Mhm.
It's never ending. Eat it for breakfast, eat it for lunch, eat it for dinner, eat it for fourth meal, whatever it may be.
I've
Dang,
changed
nice.
people's lives with the lime and cracker. That little extra lime and cracker bit is the key.
You haven't changed mine yet. You got to get me something.
I got you, bro. I got
right.
you. I'm so sorry that happened. I was literally gonna preface to the audience, anybody who doesn't know Isla Canaria, that is not even a hole in the wall. It's a place in Westchester. It has a pretty big restaurant. You can dine in, dine out. But what I know them for really is for their croquetas. That's really the only time I drive down there is really to go get them.
Well, I live like right across the street, so
Oh, that's dangerous.
it's dangerous. And they have a restaurant, they have a bakery where that's kind of more off the beaten path, a little bit of a gem. That's where they make the croquetas.
Mm.
And it's more like breakfast, lunch driven. So, and then there's Finca, of course, Amelia, that they all serve like their Y La Canaria croquetas.
Yeah, I didn't want to deviate, but I know someone is it their daughter who's related to them that opened Finca. I love Finca. That's
Yeah,
one of my
yeah.
favorite restaurants.
It's a daughter who opened
Yeah.
up Finca, Amelia, 1931, and Barbacoa now in Doral.
Nice. All right, so we're gonna get to about the middle portion of the episode here, but before we do that,
Because I can talk about croquetas all day.
I know we'll just be here and like, hey, what happened to the conversation? It's
You're making me hungry.
spiraled into a croqueta conversation. What work did you do before Mr. Eats? Was there anything you were doing before that?
Oh yeah. So when I went to Belen Jesuit High School, and when I was finishing up there, I started DJing because I was back in like 2010, 2011. So when I went into FIU, I was DJing full time, like every day, for the university. Opened up for acts like J. Cole, Zed, residencies at Live and FDR and a whole bunch of other clubs in Miami Beach. And that kind of kickstarted my whole entrepreneur mindset, and seeing the impact that social media was starting to have, because that's when Instagram was kind of created. So and then at the same time, I was working at a law firm, and I went to law school, graduated, and using all those transferable skills from, DJing and that business and law school, created where Mr. Eats is now today.
That's crazy. That's like I wasn't expecting that kind of combo of what you were doing before.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. We went to FIU around the same time. I got there in 2010 as well. So you went to, at what point were you like, hey, I'm going to drop what I'm doing with law and with DJing. I'm going to focus on this full time. When did that become like apparent for you?
Yeah. So I dropped, and it's dropped as in the sense of like pursuing it as a passion or a business, because like I was honestly if I had free time today, like go into the garage and like just mess around and still DJ.
I was gonna ask if you still DJed as well.
Yeah, I still do it, private events and different things, but it's very like, if you know, I don't promote it type of thing. And then I dropped that right around 2016, 2015, 2016. Took a year off, worked at a law firm. Like, is this what I want to do? Sure. then started dating my girlfriend and started law school. So, and created Mr. Eats the same year, 2016, 2017.
Mm-hmm.
Graduated law school in 2020, 2021. And it wasn't until I'd say the end of 2021 and start of 2022 that I was like, all right, I'm giving Mr. Eats 25%. Let's see what happens if I create this business plan and really dive into it.
Mm-hmm.
So all of 2022, for the most part, has been full on Mr. Eats.
So
That's pretty recent that you made that switch then.
Yeah.
Was it you left up, you went on and did it full time the moment you started to see that the results kind of jump? And I saw like there was like a jump in likes from like 2016 to 2017. Like 2017 started and you had a hike, and then once you got to around 2019, like you were saying, it was just in a different place.
Yeah, because like the first 2016 to 2018, again, like I was starting law school. I was just, doing it as a hobby. It was very casual. I didn't expect ever that I could make a career out of it. It was just more like, oh, I'm going to law school, and if this whole content creation thing picks up, I'll be like, a talent agent or a sports agent, or oversee influencer law, or oversee musicians or sports agents, all that. And of course, that market's still there, but again, I wanted to see what I can do for my brand rather than like overseeing a whole bunch of different brands.
Yeah, so it sounds to me like you knew it was a good idea, but you also at that point you weren't seeing it as, hey, maybe I'm the full time with my content creation,
Yeah, I just didn't have the time at the
Yeah.
time to be, going out every day and creating content with,
Mhm.
studying for school and also going to work like at a law firm, and also COVID, and then just a whole bunch of different factors that just lined up, and it made sense. I was like, oh, I'm getting a lot of feedback. People are starting to recognize me at restaurants, and I'm not even doing 100% yet.
What did the planning look like prior to launching, and then to where you are today? Like, how has that evolved over time in terms of like your content? And sorry to cut you there. Like in terms of your content, in terms of like getting it off the ground, like what you were saying with making a business plan for it. Like, what did that look like?
Yeah. So luckily, when I was in law school, I had a class that was business planning and business law, and made for entrepreneurs. And we had a presentation that it was create a law firm, create that as a business. And I really didn't, because I initially wanted to have that as like, all right, create a business in the sense of like Mr. Eats and use that as like my project. And I just kept getting tripped up on it, and I was like, all right, I don't have time to waste on this project. I need to just do something easy like a law firm. Not easy, but for the project in this sense, easy. But when it was COVID, I was thinking, I'm like, all right, let me go back and like try to create this business plan of like, step away from the whole law idea and just like business. How can I reach 10%, 20%, 50% growth in followers, likes, revenue, all that, and what does that look like, and how do I think are the best steps of getting there? And my number one was to shift from photos to videos, because that's how the trend was for Instagram and TikTok and all that. And just be more, because there's two different routes that you could take on these videos now, because that's how it looked. It literally said like, all right, shift to videos, and now what are these videos going to say? What are they going to be about? One, are they going to be informative? And I think helping people learn about something and why something is good and why they should go there, and answering the why, is the kind of the bulk of the videos. So yeah, they're cool, they're about food, they're cool places to go, but like, why? And that's how I think all my videos are created moving forward. The second part is, maybe people don't care to learn, they just care to be entertained. So making sure that the videos also have an entertainment factor, whether it's quick, easy, 15 seconds, 30 seconds, and they're in and out, and wow, I want to go back and I can't wait to see what video he creates next. So it's merging those two types of videos moving forward.
So kind of a combination of answering that why while also making it look good at the same time, pleasing to the eye. Because I mean, your stuff looks great when you look at it, and you can see it's gotten better over time too, in terms of like the photography and like the video quality and stuff.
Yeah, with as you practice with anything, like
Mhm.
I never had any formal training in photography,
Mhm.
and you can see that from my pictures in 2016 to, I would say, when I stopped, but when I shift over my focus to video in around 2020, I was doing photos, and that 4-year growth was exponential in my photos.
Mhm.
And and now, from when I started doing videos at the beginning of 2022 to where I'm at today, 8 months down the line, it's night and day from when I look back on them. Of course, the videos are good, and this
Mhm.
is a word of advice for the people that are listening, that they don't know, that they want their videos to look like mine or better
Mhm.
from day one. And my word of advice is just post content, whatever you have, however you feel is entertaining or that you like, because you're only going to get better, and when you post it and you get that feedback.
Yeah,
So yeah.
I think that's a great point. I think being a creative and working in that field of putting content out there in some ways, like I can relate to that. Don't be a perfectionist and just put out content and then figure it out, put the reps in. And I think that's great advice. I was going to ask you before, because I wanted to ask you, did you have any pain points or any lessons learned that you wish you knew when you started, something that might help an aspiring um, content creator?
um I think the biggest thing is just posting content and holding yourself accountable to content that you like,
Mhm.
because if I'm going to all the trendy places that everyone else is going to, what makes you stand out from the rest of them? Because everyone wants to be a food critic or content creator or influencer nowadays, and it's only those that are doing something different that are going to get the recognition. So for me, it would be being yourself and showcasing what you like and in your voice, and two, just like posting the content
Mhm.
and holding yourself accountable to it. So for me, I try to hold myself accountable to one reel at a minimum every weekday,
Mhm.
Monday through Friday. Anything else is extra, but and it's recommended. But if you hold yourself accountable to at least one video a day, I did that. So I did one video a day when I decided to do this full time. I did one video a day for the entire month of March,
Mhm.
and I grew 20,000 followers.
Damn.
Wow.
You think that was due to the frequency of the posting or hashtags? Like, what do you
No,
attribute most of that to?
consistency of good enough quality content.
Mhm.
And just kind of like, and it's not jumping on a trend. It's not like, hey, like this corn song that's out now, like
Yeah,
the have you
I
heard
hate
it? Whatever.
yeah.
Cool. You might. It's fun. That's like the entertainment side, but like the why doesn't get answered when I post something about that. The why is like because it's trendy.
Yeah.
You're not going to be held to a higher standard if you're just posting like trends the entire time. You might get a lot of followers, cool, but your reputation will be seen as just like a influencer or whatever it may be,
The real
rather
trend guy.
rather than like someone who's respected in the community and
Mhm.
just like helping people, whether it may be businesses or audience members trying to figure out something good in it.
Yeah, with that being said, I think you are an influencer in a sense, but in the positive, not the negative stigma that I know that immediately comes to mind when we say that word. But with that being said, did you have any influencer that impacted you, or a food review that impacted you in that
Yeah,
sense, that helped
for
you kind of form that?
for sure. I mean, I there's a whole bunch of influences that I've had
Mhm.
locally. I'd say Burger Beast, Seth, good friend of mine. He created his blog page maybe when I was still in high school, early undergrad. If I'm not mistaken, it might be 2008, 2010, around that area.
Wow, you started
So,
early.
so really started early, but it wasn't like a diehard like this is something what I want to do. It was just like, all right, if I'm going out to eat, or if he was very just burger focused at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and still kind of is, but like I loved burgers, so I was just like, all right, when I'm going to when I want a burger, I would go and like read his page. That was my biggest, I guess, local influence. So because of the idea,
Mm-hmm.
not really like I'm gonna go and like follow his
Follow what he's
footsteps.
doing.
Yeah. But I guess the other bigger influence was every time I'd come home from school, I'd put on the Food Network or Travel Channel or Discovery Channel, whatever it may be, and it was watching Guy Fieri, and his antics and his finding his dives, and I try to gear my page, and let me, before I get to that point, and my top three influences are Burger Beast, Guy Fieri, and Anthony Bourdain.
Yeah.
That's, I would try to say, are like, I'm the hybrid of the three, in the sense that Anthony Bourdain was this polished chef and I'm no chef, but polished businessman who loved traveling and loved learning the story behind the food, whether it's at a Waffle House or, this top 5-star accommodation. Guy Fieri now makes it entertaining.
Yeah.
And he does the same thing, but on a more casual,
Easy to approach,
just kind of like dudes do, like very personable style type of guy.
Yeah.
Pun intended. And then Burger Beast just like being on the ground and local and driving from Homestead to Aventura and wherever, and also his knowledge and history of Miami and of the food scene, and being so knowledgeable of your craft, the business, and not just knowing where to eat, but why.
I love that, man. I'm a big Anthony Bourdain fan. We've never talked about that off air or anything like that. And I mean, I just think that's a beautiful combo, because it's like you're hitting three levels there. Anthony Bourdain's always kind of like in that mythic level, because his storytelling ability was incredible.
Yeah,
his voice, is like that.
I don't have his voice, but I understand the concept of storytelling, and I try to portray that in my voiceovers or in my content that I'm creating. And I also have that transferable skill from DJing. Whenever I would DJ a set, I wouldn't just start off with like the biggest hit. You have to kind of like ease into it and kind of go on this roller coaster of the story of, just like every book has an intro, of the peak and the conclusion. That's how most of my videos are. And moving forward too, I don't plan, and we can get to this, I don't plan on just like staying on Instagram. So doing that.
Yeah, that's a question I want to ask you later. In terms in terms of your full-time focus, what is walk us through, because your business model, and which essentially how you would generate income, that kind of thing, that's foreign to me, on how you would do that for your particular line of business.
Yeah.
What does a day of yours look like in operating Mr. Eats? Is it, you say you put a reel a day? I'm trying to set up the question here in terms of there's a lot to ask, because you said you try to do a reel a day. I'm assuming you have a plan for that it's not you're just freewheeling from day to day. How far in advance do you get? How do you spend your time on a Monday through Friday type of thing? And
those are pretty loaded questions. Those are great. So let's start with what my day-to-day looks like, because you asked how I plan, how far in advance, and then how I make my revenue, and then you asked one more question.
The other question was essentially, I'm assuming you can't spend every day going to restaurants for 8 hours a day.
So like my posting schedule, and then like my day-to-day schedule.
Exactly.
Okay, so my day-to-day schedule affects the posting schedule, in the sense that I try to go out on the field and create the content about 3 times a week, and schedule that accordingly based on location. So if I'm going to a shoot in Wynwood, I will try to schedule other restaurants in the area, so I'm not driving from Homestead to Aventura in the same day. So I'd visit multiple locations in one day, but usually not for the same story. So if you're catching the drift,
Yeah.
I'm already planning those stories prior to it to be able to capture the content week, let's say this week, but then next week, that's when I will have those posts live.
Yeah.
Depending on, and now this is slowly getting into the revenue thing, depending on what the content's for. Is it an opinion post where it's just based on something that I would want to do, or is it geared for a bigger brand? So if you've seen some of my recent posts, it's I partnered with Brightline recently, and Brightline paid me to take the Brightline, but then I got to choose and pay at restaurants in Fort Lauderdale, a day in Fort Lauderdale.
Gotcha.
So it's a bigger brand that will then allow me to have the flexibility to choose what I please. DoorDash, another partner of mine. I did a post recently that was my top 3 takeout items that I like to order from using DoorDash. So as you see, it's not when I work with brands, they give me the flexibility to use them as subtle messaging, but highlight the
Other
places
restaurants.
without it being like a pay to play type of thing.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. So it's kind of like mixing the best of both, doing kind of branded content with also giving exposure. At this point, I feel like you're giving exposure rather than getting exposure, if that makes sense.
For sure. It's not only giving the exposure, but also from a trusted reputation, and not saying like, hey, I'm giving exposure to this random restaurant that they made me come to, and like
Yeah, I get you.
I have to do it. So that's how I try to paint things in the sense of to the brands, like, hey, I really want to work with you. I like your brand. I like what you guys stand for, but I'm not going to just create a video that says like order from DoorDash, like eat more chicken, Chick-fil-A type of sign. Like it has to make sense with my type of content that will engage my audience as well. So that's one form of revenue, the brands. The second form, which is still not a major sense of revenue, but people think that this might be the major sense of revenue, is based on like views and plays off of like reel bonuses or TikTok creators or YouTube. Like I'm not fully into the YouTube scene yet because that's part of the future plan for Q4, hire, videographers, interns to be able to record horizontally while I record vertically. I can't be doing 2 and having like 2 mics and 2 like I tried. It's too much. So that's a second source of revenue, but it's pennies compared to brands.
The branded stuff.
The branded stuff is the highest paying forms of revenue, but they're not, knocking on my doorstep every week.
Yeah. I was going to ask that. Are you finding that you have to reach out to them, or at this point, it's a little bit of both?
So I, to this day, have not solicited any form of content or contracts. And solicit's a bad word, but I would say reach out to places and say like, hey, this is who I am. This is my business. I'd love to work with you guys. I do plan on doing that soon, but I also want to make sure I'm in the proper position where I understand the value and I have the numbers that I can give to them, rather than just being like, hey, give me, X amount of dollars to promote your thing. Like, I don't want to be that guy ever to ask for money or free items, because that's where the influencers get that bad reputation.
Oh, what you're giving them is really cool, because what you're saying, what I'm understanding what you're saying is you're going to give them the stats. Like, hey, on average, this is the kind of viewership you're going to get on something like this. This is the shares. This is the amount of accounts you might reach. This is like my level of completion of how many people are completing watching a video. I don't know.
Yeah,
like that.
You give them the why, and that could be like the answer to this or the title to this podcast, because like helping people understand why they should go to this place, or why they should work with me, or why I'm this much more valuable than the next person, is why they will, want to sign me or have me work with them. So allowing to give that information to the brands is what I'm waiting for to be able to pitch it to them. So for now, they approach me, and there's a lot of brands that approach me that I don't think align with my brand or that will do well. So I do leave money on the table countless of times because I just don't think it works with me and my audience. And it's just finding the right fit with the brands and how, there's some busy months, slower months, but it's luckily
That's savvy, man.
It's frequent.
Yeah.
That's savvy. I think that's honorable first and foremost because you understand your audience and you're not it's not the cash grab necessarily. It's the what do they want to listen to? Because at the end of the day, your audience is the way I see it. Your audience are the type of people that you're like a magnet for. You know what I mean? You're attracting the type of people that like who you are in terms of like the ideals that you're representing with your brand. And so by choosing to do the things you do, that's going to be reflected in who the audience is tuning in for the most part or who sticks with you.
Yeah. And when, as you were mentioning that, I was kind of like putting two and two together and thinking that I don't get a lot of these like internet trolls on my followers, and I respect that of my followers, that they respect me in the sense of that they trust me. And I think that's how it comes down to that, is that you only disrespect someone, that you don't know over the internet because maybe they don't trust them in the sense of like, oh, he's just another influencer, or oh, he's just another, follower grabber or money, whatever it is. Like, he's just there for the clout. And I don't get a lot of that because, again, I this is a theory because I don't know if it's that I'm a man and I've seen it compared to women. And no, I don't, mean this in a bad way, but other guys or other people just feel like they can go and leave these random obnoxious comments to other people's platforms where I don't see that as frequent. And there's something to it. I guess it's the trusted theory. But I'm sure there's other reasons to it as well.
I think there's a likability to your content. And I'm getting into we're getting into the theories, but there's a likability to your content in terms of like, you got to be a legit, like you're just going online to be a troll in order to go on someone, you know what I mean? And
of course. Content. But and before we move on to the next segment, the third form of revenue would be local advertisements. So when a local restaurant invites me out to go eat at their place, be it, a staple in Miami or a new place that just opened, a mom and pop, whatever it may be. And I get those, countless because I do have, a high local footprint in the scene, and there is a lot of value in these videos. So what I do is I send them my media deck, and in that media deck, it has information about me. It has my most recent insights of my last previous videos, my audience, testimonials about other restaurants and how it's impacted them, my media links and where I've been featured, as well as my rates. And those rates are flexible depending on the restaurant. I'm not going to be charging a brand new mom and pop restaurant that sells pastries versus a massive chain with 100 locations. But I understand everyone needs to understand that it is a business of an advertising and marketing business. But here's the kicker. Under those rates, I have a disclaimer that says that me agreeing to this is subjective upon me thinking it's to the quality where it should be published onto my page. And it's happened before where, I go and like, hey, this is good, and I can throw Instagram stories up for this value. And I hope that's okay. And usually it's okay because I reach 10 to 20,000 people on Instagram stories. But I don't think that this is at the level of post or publication that I deem necessary for the reach that my reels or my TikTok may have. And it's not like it happens once a week. That maybe happens once a month, if that.
Yeah.
But it's always there because I don't want to agree to go to a place, try it, and it just be not to the level where I think my
Somewhere to
audience
go.
should know.
Yeah.
So
I was gonna ask that. It was essentially like, if someone, have you been in an awkward situation? But it sounds like that kind of disclaimer came from a situation where you went, and you don't have to name the place, so please don't. But that
no,
you went to a place and that happened, that you had to be like, all right, in the future, I got to cover myself and my audience here.
luckily it didn't happen because
Oh,
of a
okay.
place. It's using my legal knowledge of
Hmm.
making sure that I'm protected
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
from if I don't post a place, that it gives me that safety net to be like, hey, in the media deck that is, what we agreed on. I have this disclaimer here that I don't think it is at the level of it is, and it's very subjective. So like, sure, they might have some issues with that,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, food in general is subjective.
Yeah.
One food critic, one food lover, one patron of any place might like a certain style of pizza compared to the next.
Yeah.
So all these different lists and all these different posts about food, I always, tell people go and try it for themselves before you give an opinion, because you might like something that I might not really like. You might be a seafood lover and I'm a meat lover, so I look
Yeah.
at seafood differently compared to how you may look at seafood.
Interesting. I wanted to kind of pivot this next part into a vision of the future for Mr. Eats. Is there any ideas you want to talk about or things that you're working towards? You mentioned YouTube.
There's
You can mention platforms that you're engaged most in, or maybe some that you're not spending too much time on now. However you want to take it.
Yeah, so I recently, um we hit the half point mark of the year,
Mhm.
in June, July.
Mhm.
And I was traveling a lot, but when I got back from my travels and on the planes, I was creating my next business plan for the next year. And with any business plan, there's phases. So we'll discuss, I guess, we'll discuss them in order. Phase one is being more in tune with every platform, not just Instagram and TikTok. It's why not? It's already created. It's posting it on Twitter and posting it on YouTube Shorts. Um, Even if I don't know how to work YouTube Shorts, with which guilty as charged, I just kind of like post it on there, and I don't really, I'm working with the app as it grows its Shorts program. But that goes
Yeah.
back to my advice of like, you have the content, just post it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I wanted to listen to my own advice and just post the content. Um, that it was phase one, and that I started doing that recently, about 2 weeks ago. Nothing crazy.
Hmm.
Um, Phase two is hiring staff or interns or whatever that may look like, to be able to help me create the content on the YouTube side horizontally and create a higher quality experience in my videos.
Hmm.
Um, we're still in phase one because remember, this was supposed to be for next year, but I'm
Yeah.
easily getting into it. With that, the price goes up when you could, have these different styles of videos. Something like this, in the sense of now I'm more than just a influencer. I could be interviewing chefs. I could be asking the chefs why, one-on-one, rather
Hmm.
than I have 60 seconds. Let me see how much content I can get in without it being overkill.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's phase two, and expanding the brand into being more than just a influencer, being more of a personality, being more of be it a TV host eventually, possibly.
Hmm.
Um, that, I guess, that's one of the goals, being able to
Have a show.
have a show, and it doesn't need to be on like TV. It could just be like, hey, give me this platform, what be it YouTube or TikTok, if they want it to be just like create and spread the message of these restaurateurs and these chefs, similar to like we said, the Anthony Bourdain and Guy
Yeah.
Fieri, and understand being that middle ground between the two.
Yeah.
So that's phase 2.
That's great on your pitch deck too, bridging the gap between Guy Fieri and Anthony Bourdain.
Absolutely.
That's like a great little.
Yeah, it's like the Latin flair of the two.
Yeah, there you go. I like that.
And a locals guide for locals, and again, tourists, fine, but when people visit Miami for the first time, I think they should do the Miami for the first time type of thing, but I want to go more than just that outer layer.
Yeah.
So it is more of like a locals guide for locals. And with that would be creating because I have a website already, but really expanding on my website and making it more than just a blog, which I don't have it. I removed all the blog posts and all that because I'm working on something, a whole rebrand, a whole color palette change, creating a new script, creating just kind of a whole theme of the brand. And that goes along with like phase 2. I should have that by the end of the year. I can't go into more details about the website and what can come from that. It's exciting, but I can just say it's making it more accessible for locals to find what they want, filtered through my, I guess, reviews, and it just being easier for them, not having to scroll through my Instagram.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So yeah, with that, we'll see where it takes me. That's, I guess, the business plan. I have one more thing that I just can't talk about, which is phase 4 of the business plan for next year. And again, wherever that takes me, that's great. And there's one more thing that I wanted to get to, and just being able to help other influencers or content creators, and more of like a consulting aspect as well, where that's kind of like a personal thing on the side, whatever that may be, whether it's consulting businesses or consulting content creators or consulting whomever it may be, because I've had the experience of 7 years of digital marketing and a legal background and a business background. So there's a lot of value that I can stir up, and creative knowledge that I could really have for others.
And
For sure.
I think you're doing that now too. I mean, the heart of this podcast is to teach and learn business through conversation. And anybody who's listening to this, who's aspiring to do something like what you're doing, and what we like to say is that kind of wisdom of your experience transcends to other industries. I think it'll be helpful to them just in hearing this, but you can take it a step further in that consulting. I also want to say, sorry.
Exactly. It would just be geared towards that individual, here, hey, this is ideas for you. I've done it for friends of mine that are, lifestyle bloggers and female, male, saying like, hey, this is the trend that I'm seeing. This is, answer the why they should be watching, why they should, buy that product. And I think your videos would go a lot further than the next person who's just posting a cute picture or video of themselves.
I love that. Opportunities abound too right now. There's no longer, like you were saying, you don't need to be on cable. You don't need to. Back in the day, if you wanted a food show, you would, your holy grail would probably be Food Network or a Travel Channel.
Yeah.
But now it's like 24/7 content. Everybody needs that. They want to attract talent. That's kind of the way I see it. And I think it's a golden era for content creators and storytellers, and it's exciting for me as a production company owner in terms of telling stories. And it just feels like there's more opportunities there if you wanted to down the line. I could totally see you doing like a Guy Fieri thing where you have a branded show, whether it's by a streamer or whether it's by a social media platform engaging in long form content, because it's interesting to hear you say like, hey, I might be interviewing chefs. I might be, doing more special featurettes on a specific local restaurant. And also spearheading the fact that it's locally focused, I think is going to be huge. Maybe that's like the revolutionizing that local media needs to stay relevant.
Yeah, I appreciate your support, and I think I do think it can do well. And if you ask business perspective now, if we have this big entrepreneur and this big business man or investor, whoever it may be, say like, all right, you have Miami covered, but then what's next?
Hmm.
You know, and the idea would then be like finding different Mr. Eats
Hmm.
throughout the nation and using them as kind of like understudies or partners. You know, hey, I'm in New York, so let me kick it to Fulano in New
Yeah.
York who
Yeah.
has like, you know, he has me covered.
He's
Or
an affiliate.
yeah, he's like an
Yeah.
affiliate or a co-partner or just kind of like when people go to a place, hey, this is he's the locals expert, so I can be the host, but then he can be the one that's taking me to
It's in,
these trusted places.
Yeah.
that's interesting you say that. And I see you're a sports fan because you got the Marlins cap, you got the
I have,
fins
yeah,
back there.
I might, yeah, Belen, FIU,
Yeah.
Finns, Marlins. I have Heat somewhere else around here.
Well, one of my favorite sports podcasters is Bill Simmons, and he has his national show. But what I've noticed lately is that now he's expanding the Ringer, and he's doing. There's a Chicago local-based show sponsored by the Ringer. He's done one in Boston. He does one in New York. I mean, he has these now. They're going from national to local instead of from local to national. What it used to be before, right? So
Yeah.
that's pretty interesting. The direction it could go in. All right, we got some fun questions. And we're gonna get into some outros. Zach, did you have a question on some practical stuff?
I did. There was one thing I wanted to go back to. I was a little curious on. So I know, we're talking about the future at the moment, and I'm looking at the timeline. I know you started in 2016. You kind of made that full-time switch in 2022. I was curious about, how the pandemic impacted the landscape here. Did it impact things? Did it increase, the amount of restaurants looking for people like you, or, like what was the trend that you saw during that time?
Yeah, that's actually a great point. So there's two different trends. There was, and this is again hyper focused to Miami. So if you're listening this out of Miami, it's going to be a little bit harder to relate. But in Miami, we weren't closed for a very long time, and there was a lot going on during COVID. You know, restaurants were coming in, and new things were happening, and I was able to kind of use that time as just like research of the scene. But prior to that, for the little bit of time that we were closed, um, a lot of people, influencers, content creators, were focused on recipes and at home things and helping people that were stuck at home for what to eat. I didn't feel like that was me.
Mhm.
I think that was useful. That was great.
Hmm.
Um, but for me, my focus was helping these businesses that were friends of mine that I loved personally, uh, as a patron or just as a person in the industry. How could I help them with whatever they need? And that was just going out and buying food from these places and supporting local and making sure that we were trying to do whatever we can to help spread the news of to go cocktails or to go boxes or whatever that was. I was more focused, and all these entrepreneurs that were like stuck at home and now creating these crazy ideas that are now brick and mortars. Like
Mm.
we saw this beautiful revolution of entrepreneurs and people that just love food go home and bake cookies and create pizza, and now that's their full-time jobs. So
Yeah.
it was helping businesses use my platform as advertisement, but helping those patrons find these places and connecting that bridge between local, the same thing that I normally do, but really geared on just making sure that we were supporting local at that time. And I didn't get like a big follower jump or anything like that. I kind of stayed doing what I was doing. If I went the recipe route, I probably could have gone, a whole followers thing. But that goes back to the point of just sticking true to the brand and building the reputation. I think it helped my reputation from the industry standpoint, and people just saw me as just kind of like this local guide and really hone in on having me as that face of the food in Miami.
Got you. Nice. Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that I actually didn't expect to come out of the pandemic. I had just, heard recently, a few weeks ago and last week, more and more stories of a lot of people who during the pandemic they would, they started literally making pizza like in their backyard. And then now they've got their own brick and mortar locations. They're opening up multiple locations. So, I mean, it seems like there was definitely some good to come, out of it from, just a lot of new restaurants, a lot of new, food just coming up from neighborhoods and families like that.
Yeah, and then once we did open, that it was just like hit the ground running. That
Yeah.
Miami was the place to be. It was a destination for businesses, tourists. Like it just really helped the food scene pop off.
Nice.
Love it. It's fun to see Miami, in a way, coming out of the pandemic, leading the way.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're seeing a lot of tech companies come down here, a lot of companies moving headquarters here. So, and I think that's what you said, in the last 2 to 3 years, the food and beverage industry has just exploded down here in terms of what's opened up.
It's crazy, man. Like I spent a lot of time traveling this summer, thankfully. But it helped me realize that we're not missing out on too much leaving Miami. Like we are getting to the point where we don't need to travel anymore for good food.
I was
We
gonna.
don't, we don't need to go very far for good food anymore. And it's not just Hispanic food. Like, we have good pizza now. Good pizza. I'm actually going to be releasing. When you hear this,
Okay.
people will like when the people listening, when they hear this, I'll already have my top 10 New York style pizzas in Miami posted. For the last 2 months, I've spent like my free time, going to different pizza shops and ranking my top 10 New York style pizzas. I went to over 25 different places.
Wow.
Okay.
So when they hear this, they will see that there is good pizza in Miami, and this is just focused on New York style, not Neapolitan or Sicilian or Detroit or Chicago. Like there's a lot of. It's not my top 10 pizza list. It's just my top 10 New York style pizza list.
Is that your personal favorite though?
That is my personal favorite.
Same here.
That's why I felt like I could be a true judge of it.
Yeah, I agree. I think I might know which one is on the top or near the top of that list.
We already said it. We prefaced it with Miami Slice, but
it'll be out, so it won't be a spoiler for your list.
Exactly.
Let's get into some stuff here. You got like 10, 15 more minutes on you?
I'm good. I'm good till like another 2 or 3 hours.
Oh, cool. Awesome. For someone out there who's looking to review food, what tips would you give? Are you eating the full portions? Are you having just a bite? What's the game plan when you have a full day of food reviewing ahead?
So that's a great question, because I get that question a lot. Besides, like, how do you stay skinny or how do you stay in shape? Like, we can get to that question after.
The next one, yeah.
Yeah. So I get served a lot of food when I go to these places. There's even more food than the camera sees, because there's sometimes that they serve me almost a full menu, and
Wow.
and not every dish is to the point of where I think it should be posted about. So with that being said, I cannot finish every single dish. I have finished a lot of dishes before this. I'm not like the skinniest of people either, but what I like doing is taking, enough bites to properly gauge my opinion on it, whether it's 1 or 3 or finishing the item.
Yeah.
And whatever I don't eat, it depends on, the time of day, the place that I'm at. I offer it first to the kitchen to see if the staff is hungry. If it's a pizza that I don't touch 7 other slices, like, easy to share. Obviously, if it's like a handheld sandwich, harder. But I offer those type of things to the staff. If they don't take it, I take it to go. If I see homeless people on my way back home, I feed them and I give them everything.
Yeah.
If I don't catch any homeless people, I bring it back home. I bring it to my in-laws' house. I bring it to my parents, whoever it may be, and I try to feed as many people as I can until the food is like, you shouldn't be eating it anymore.
Yeah.
And then it goes to waste. But again, it's not waste in the sense of like we're just like
we're
negligently throwing it out. It's for advertising and marketing and the value. They're not losing value on what they
produce
feed
for
me.
you.
Exactly. It's goes towards the bigger cause.
But what's the game plan though? Are you not eating anything in the morning? Are you is there like a fast that you're doing in the beginning of the day? Because you got to keep
Yeah.
your appetite like let me ask you this because I didn't hit this question. You said you like to go out into the field about 3 times a week. How many restaurants do you try to hit on each day? It kind of like
So
leads up to my question, right?
so my Monday through Friday schedule is a lot like this. I will probably wake up around 8 a.m.
Mhm.
Um, drink some water. I'd say like the days that I'm not going anywhere, I walk to the gym, which is about a mile away from my house. Work out for about another 45 minutes, and on that walk, I am like answering phone calls or answering emails, and I'm productive, and that's like my housekeeping.
Mhm.
Um, and then work out, come back home, I swim or shower, do type of, workout a lot
Yeah.
in the morning. Like the mornings
Yeah.
are made for workouts on an empty stomach.
Mhm.
Um, and then if I'm going places, then around this time, 11:30, 12, I go to the restaurants, try to hit about 2 to 3 in a day.
Okay.
Each restaurant takes me about an hour and a half of filming and eating. And I try to be done around 4 to 5 p.m. Sit in traffic with all of you guys, and then the evenings are for posting the content, which usually I have it already made for that day.
Okay.
In the mornings is when when I'm doing my emails and my editing and all that. I'm also getting that content out for that day. And then fall asleep, same thing, 11 midnight, and just do the same thing. Weekends I try to give myself and my family, my fiance, the time
Yeah.
to spend with them. I try not to focus on getting content out, rather than like, if I get content, I'll showcase it, but not in the sense that it's like a planned thing.
Purpose. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like I saw you went to Smorgasbord this weekend.
Mhm.
No?
Wasn't planned. I did,
That
but
was
that
just
wasn't planned. That was like,
impromptu.
yeah, it was like, hey, they were hosting a barbecue style smorgasbord that they were
Mhm.
having vendors there that they normally don't have on their Saturdays. So I woke up and I'm like, hey, today I'm gonna go check it out now, and if I create content there, cool. But
Yeah.
I ended up posting that like at night, but I obviously was there at
In the
12,
daytime, yeah.
12, 1 p.m.
Yeah. You gave me a new spot. I usually go to Hometown, but I hadn't heard of La Traila. So that's like
La Traila and Drinking Pig are two of my favorites.
yeah.
There's
I've been to Drinking Pig.
I'm not gonna give the rest of my list, because
Yeah.
that is, these lists people do like hearing,
Yeah.
and I do plan on creating these lists after I post my pizza list.
Cool. Cool.
So yeah.
Something speaking of lists, not to deviate, Infatuation,
Of course.
I love their list that they have, how they have it divided by like kind of sub areas of Miami. Like that's
Yeah, I think what they do is great. They're the ones that I look up to the most.
mhm.
That I read, that I not constantly read, but like to keep up to date with things and
Yeah.
food media. They do a good job. Um, what I plan on doing in Q3 is similar to what they're doing.
Mhm.
But again, it's going to be hyper focused to me being the face of it, and
Yeah.
it being more of a personality driven rather than a corporate, because they're
Journalistic.
owned
Yeah.
by, they're owned by like Chase Bank.
Oh, really? I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah. So just kind of do it through someone that's not owned by a bank.
So that's like Chase Bank's attempt at like Michelin that is a tire company and they're giving out Michelin stars, you know.
I think that's
Yeah.
one of their goals, but I don't want to speak for the
Yeah.
company and what they have
Gotcha.
planned. I think it's just more of like, hey, we have a lot of benefits when you use the Chase card at these restaurants type of
Cool.
thing. I think that might be their main focus.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
For those listening, that's Infatuation, but they usually have like city branches accounts. So like the Infatuation Miami just covers Miami, but I think they go a little further than Miami sometimes.
Oh yeah, I think they might have started in New York or San Francisco
Mhm.
or LA or one of those places, but they have every major
Everywhere.
city. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Big question here. Do you ever cook at home? Like
That is a great question. Um, yes is the answer to the question, but
yeah.
often no.
Yeah. Not frequently.
Not frequently, again, because if I am going out to these places, 3 places a day, I have leftovers for the evenings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But luckily, like my fiance does like to cook a lot. So I'm her sous chef.
Okay. There you go.
She leads the charge. She will pick the recipe. She will be the one that I guess is in charge of the kitchen.
Yeah.
We make a lot of, I guess chicken breast is number one because we try to balance our diet and try to eat healthy. And chicken breast, we try to make more for lunch the next day, the days
Yeah.
that we're not going to places. And just try to balance our diet. It's important to make sure that we also are eating healthy, but no one wants to see a very plain, boring chicken breast. There's no recipe for that. There's not like no need to cover that on Instagram.
Nah, man, you're just trying to keep the balance between the other regimen of having to be out there and eating at restaurants. What I'm assuming like almost 6 to 9 times a week.
If you're doing 3 times 3,
3 times a day.
Yeah.
That's like you're a marathon runner when it comes to the food reviewing. If you see it like that, I mean, you gotta pace yourself in that sense. Yeah,
and just having that sense of organization and logistics. There's no one in Miami doing it like me, and not in a cocky way. Just like it's tough. It's like literally for trained professionals. I would not have been able to do this year 1, year 2 to year 5 until I really understood how much content I needed at that place, and like really understanding what video I'm creating in my head prior to actually going there, which helps me a lot.
All right, we can get into the rapid fire now. I got a bonus section for you. Before we get there, any other city you enjoy the most, their culinary scene?
Yeah, I mean, Chicago is probably, I wouldn't say underrated because it is on the map, but it's on the map for like deep dish, and I think I don't really like deep dish pizza. I'll obviously eat it, but if I had to choose, it's not my priority.
Yeah.
But I think Chicago does a great job all across the board. New York, great for culinary, for sure. Haven't been to Boston in years, but last time I remember going, Boston's great. San Francisco is great for the Asian food. There's, the states are so diverse with different cultures, different nationalities, different style of cooking. So everywhere you go, there's different styles of, going down to the South and get more barbecue.
Yeah.
So it just depends what you're looking for.
Yeah.
But I think if I had to pick one city food wise, no, I can't. I can't. It's either New York or Chicago.
Yeah.
Outside of Miami. Miami is my number one.
I'd put New York would probably be top of mine. But it's funny, like it's cities that are melting pots of culture. That's typically that's the best food scenes you'll find.
For sure.
Zach, anything else before we get into rapid fire here?
No, not yet. I wanna get through these. These are the fun ones.
All right, let's do it. All right, so rapid fire, usually how we end an episode. I grew up watching Inside the Actor Studio, and the host there, James Lipton, would do a 10-question segment. Pretty much, it's almost kind of like when is a psychologist do the Rorschach test, or where they pull a picture and what you think of first.
The ink, yeah.
We try to do that, but with these questions to get a little feel for you. So I'm going to ask you these 10 questions, and then I have a bonus foodie-inspired rapid fire that I didn't actually send you any preparation for because I want to literally just ask you.
Well, just to be clear, I on purpose to test myself, I did not look at these rapid fire questions.
Okay, cool. Good.
I looked at the other ones, but I didn't look at these. And to preface it, since I really don't know what type of questions they are, if you're going to tell me what my favorite places are to eat, that's going to be tough because it's like picking a favorite child, but I'll do my best. There's going to be other places that are just as great that might slip my mind, but if we want to do the ink test of what first comes to mind,
that's what we're doing. That's
it.
Oh, and it's easier when it's separate, when it's like in different neighborhoods and different cuisines, not to be like, what's your favorite restaurant in Miami? Not answering that question.
I have it divided by food subgenres.
Perfect.
Okay, but we'll do the non-food one first. Here we go. All right, George, what is your favorite word?
Eat.
What is your least favorite word?
Hate.
What gets you going? or inspires you?
That's a deeper question than a 10-second thing. Um, I'd say being helpful and whatever that may be, whether it's answering the why for people to eat or just like helping people solve problems, legally, food, day to days, like that's what I think is gets me going.
What puts you off?
Not trying.
What sound or noise do you love?
Music is a compilation of sounds, so I'm just gonna go with the easy answer and say music.
Same question, but what do you hate?
Nails on a chalkboard.
Oof.
Oh, and this is a big one, and it's very specific. When you get like that gift of like the styrofoam or whatever, and you have to like take it out of that cardboard box and it has like that screech.
Yep.
Hate that noise.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Well, the TV aspect of it and working in a cable setting or a bigger production of what I do, but I don't know if you're going to count that answer because it is still kind of like what I do.
Within the same realm.
Yeah.
I won't count it.
You won't count it? Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I'd like to work in like, and I know it's kind of dying, but radio and being some sort of like DJ and helping people find new music. So it's similar in the same realm, but it's something that I do find passionate, helping people find the why and discover new things.
We'll take
music.
Yeah.
What profession would you not like to do?
Doctor. Way too much school and too much on the line. My hat's off to all those medical people.
Yep.
What is a bit of advice or wisdom you wish you knew before starting your own company?
Just be consistent, be organized, be posting or doing what you want to do, but make it make sense, not just things that it can't just be a passion project. You got to balance the passion with the business.
What do you want your obituary to say about you?
Beloved husband, beloved father, and a lover of food.
Love it. All right, now we're over with the inside the actor inspired 10 questions.
I was ready to keep going. Yeah.
We're gonna get into the food one now. So
Let's do it.
This is just, I'm gonna throw something out there. I'm essentially looking for not necessarily the best. We don't want to play favorites. I know
my favorite.
This is just whatever pops into your head first.
Okay,
so
fair.
All right.
Fair.
And we'll keep it obviously South Florida,
Miami. We'll
whatever.
Miami.
Okay, sounds good. Miami focused. Best burgers.
Ted's Burgers.
I haven't been there yet, and that's top of my list right now.
I'd really love smash burgers, so that's top of my list for smash burgers.
Okay. Sushi.
Matsuri.
Zach, I hope you're writing notes here on this.
Yeah.
Luca
Italian.
Osteria, Coral Gables.
Oof. Colombian.
Dogma or no? Is it Dogma or Dogi? They're Colombian, or there's the ones that's in Mimo. There's two of them.
I don't think I've been there.
Either
I've been
one.
to Mimo, but I haven't been to that restaurant.
Either one, really good.
Seafood.
Freshco Kendall.
Freshco Kendall. Okay, I definitely gotta go there. Cuban sandwich.
Sanguiche de Miami.
Croquetas.
Y La Canaria.
That was quick.
Can we check the time on that? Is that 0.2?
That was really snappy.
That was quicker. That was quicker than a Steph Curry release right there. Pizza.
Miami Slice.
Ice cream.
Crybaby Creamery, Palmetto Bay.
this is kind of a tougher question because it's just bakery.
Not counting like croquetas, right?
That's tough. Let's do two. Let's do regular bakery, like just what you find like maybe different types of pastries, and then like a Spanish Cuban style bakery.
Best bakery in the traditional sense. I'm gonna go Madruga Bakery in South Miami,
Okay.
off the beaten path. Sack the Baker, Madruga, they both
Mhm.
came to mind.
Mm.
Cuban Bakery, obviously, if we count Islas for just the croquetas, but if we want to go full on bakery, I might go Breadman Bakery in Westchester and Hialeah. Might go Breadman.
Favorite spot to get a cocktail?
My house. No. So Café La Trova, Little Havana.
Favorite brewery or go to?
I guess J. Wakefield. But Veza Sur and J. Wakefield and Wynwood. Either one.
Okay.
Go to smoke or regular smoke? Cigar. I saw that you're into cigars.
Barely.
No?
Slightly. It would just be like a Churchill of some brand type of
Okay.
thing. Something light, something on social occasions, not like every weekend type of thing. A wedding.
All right.
You
And
know.
first restaurant that popped into your mind right now.
La Canaria.
All right, that's a good place to end it. That's a good place to end it right there.
Croqueta's always on my mind.
All right, man. Thank you so much for your time, George. It was
course,
a pleasure having you on. I do want to give you a moment now. The show is yours, the floor is yours. Plug anything of yours. Tell the people listening how to find you. Keep up to date with what you're doing.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Again, I appreciate everyone listening, and if they have any questions, reach out to me on social media. Mostly Instagram is probably best. Mr. Eats 305. That's Mr. Mr. Eats 305. You can also find me on TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. Big things coming, so I'm open to all suggestions. Places you want me to go to, places you want me to try out, new, old, classics. But stay tuned, and yeah, I'm excited to show you guys what's in store.
Love it, man. Thank you for joining us. We'd love to have you back on once you start getting into phase 3 and 4 of your plans, and stay up to date with what you're doing. His stuff's the best, guys. Especially if you're in Miami, follow and pretty much.
If you're not and you're visiting Miami for the first time, please send me a message, and I'd love to help you guys find where you guys should go on your first day in Miami.
Perfect. Zach, any closing thoughts or anything?
Yeah, I have a lot of places to try and eat now. That's awesome.
That last bit was just a selfish.
It was
just to get a list of go-tos for us. That was pretty much
good. That's like a hit list, literally.
There we go, brother. Thank you. Okay. Thanks again for coming on, man. Take care.
Of course, man. For sure.
Thank you for listening to the Soapbox Business Show. You can find this podcast anywhere you find podcasts, Apple, Google. You can visit us on YouTube, or you can take a look at our website at soapbox.house, where you'll find a whole bunch of links to this podcast and other podcasts in our network. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.